There are millions of people today evacuating their homes because of war, social unrest, disease, famine, local food shortages, or just the inability to pay for things in order to make ends meet. Those are refugees, and there are millions of them right now across our world. There's also millions of internally displaced citizens or internally displaced people who have been forced to evacuate their home, the security of their shelters, into the unknown. This could be because of a natural disaster, or it could be because of regional or local strife. How are those people going to keep normalcy for their family? How are those people going to spend the holidays with their children? Today I want to show you a recipe for making a refugee Thanksgiving meal. If you're lucky, you will have access to a fire, but it's not guaranteed. You'll also, as a refugee, have access to some food staples. Now, we're used to a Western supermarket where you can just walk down dozens of aisles and have access to literally almost anything that is created on this planet as far as a pre-made or a pre-processed food. As a refugee, you're only going to have access to common staple ingredients. That's your flour or some sort of grain, your sugar, water, oil, if you're lucky, a canned vegetable, and maybe a dried fruit or a canned fruit. Today I'm going to be cooking an Indian flatbread with just oat flour. This is oat flour that Kelly processed yesterday. She brought it from raw oats down to a flour. No wheat flour involved here. A can of corn. We have a little bit of chicken left over from another meal that we had, and we're going to fry it up. Now, you don't need exact measurements. You're just going to use pretty much equal parts. And I'm going to start with something small because I'm just making something for myself right now. I've got my 100% oat flour there, no wheat flour. I don't have any salt or anything to make this, a little bit more rich in taste. But I'm just going to make do with what I have. The canned food that I have, the canned corn and the leftover canned chicken, those are both going to provide enough sodium to get my daily needs in. And you want this to be a sticky but a well-formed dough. So just add in enough water that you're able to get it to that. Add in enough flour. If you're not used to making a flatbread or anything, you just keep going at it, and eventually you'll need to add in some flour to keep it from kind of sticking to itself. But you see, you'll know that it's nearing its consistency and where you want it to be. If it starts pulling away from itself, that means you squish it like that and it pulls away and it leaves your hand a little bit on the cleaner side. Then you want to just roll it around, make sure you get everything, because you're going to be using this pot right here. You don't have access to a dishwasher or lots of water that you can reuse. You're going to be using this pot, whether it has sediment left over in it or not, and you'll be cooking your corn and maybe reheating your chicken or whatever else you might have in it. Okay, our oat flour is done. We're going to go ahead and heat up a skillet or a frying pan. You might only have access to a pizza dish. You need to use something that can conduct the heat but is durable. If you only have access to aluminum, well, you don't get to pick and choose as a refugee. You just have to kind of stick with what you've got. Okay, I've got about a tablespoon of oil inside of here. This is extra virgin olive oil, so it's going to heat differently than maybe if you were using a vegetable oil, but you're going to use whatever kind of oil you have access to. Why? Because that is your only source of fat today, besides what fat you might get inside of a small amount of a canned chicken. The corn, for all intents and purposes, has no fat in it. The oat flour, same thing, no fat in it. That's going to make a difference. The canned chicken is boneless, skinless before it goes into a canning process. That's going to have next to no fat. This is the only fat that you're going to get. So you're going to want to go a little bit heavy on it and use your oil as a fat source. You're going to dip in it after. You're never going to let this go to waste. You will eat this, whether you eat it with some bread or you put it with something dry that you're eating. No matter what you do, make use of your fat. You're going to want to make your flatbreads just as thin as possible. That's going to cut down on your precious fuel resources. It's going to make it so that you don't have to cook it as long. Now, this has nothing in it that's spoilable besides the oil once you leave it in there. So you are free to eat it as it is if you had to. Now, you wouldn't want to. It's not very palatable, but if you have to, that's just what you do. There's no rolling pins here, no access to anything to make this a little bit easier. It's just a get your hands dirty kind of meal. I'm going to leave this about the thickness of maybe a pencil lead. Then I'm just going to throw it right in the oil, let it sit for a little bit. Uniformity also doesn't matter. This is all about calories in so that you can continue to put calories out. Just get them formed and get them in the oil. Get them soaking up that grease or that fat as soon as you possibly can. I'm actually going to go ahead and move the flatbread over into the pot that I used to form it up with. And then I'm going to use this bigger skillet because it was already heated. And I'm going to cook my corn inside of that with a little bit of my chicken. I'm going to go ahead and save half the corn for anybody else who might want some later and bring this up to a boil inside of the liquid that was here. Now, corn has a high degree of sodium in it, so you're going to get plenty of your daily salt intake just through this, plus it has a whole bunch of other nutrients and vitamins. You will have access as a refugee to canned goods. Different organizations around our world make sure that everybody at least has some access some of the time. Now, that doesn't mean that refugees aren't starving all across our planet. That doesn't mean that some will have access to this quality of canned goods, but you're going to have access to something at some point in time. If not, you'll have to work with local groups and farmers, barter and trade, make sure that you are able to get access to those food products to keep you and your family healthy. I'm going to go ahead and dump in some chicken. I have about probably 2 tablespoons here. Now, you're not going to use very much. We're used to a land of plenty in the good old US of A, and in the Western world, your protein products, your meat products are really going to be for flavoring. They're going to add protein, add a minimal amount of fat, some cholesterol into your food, but so little cholesterol and so much added vitamins and nutrients that it's going to weigh itself out. Because remember, every day you are working, you're working just cutting your firewood, keeping your house safe, keeping your shelter up. All of these things take constant maintenance. Now remember, with canned goods, each of these products were already prepared. They were safe to eat right out of the container, but there is a certain level of psychological serotonin release, psychological help that comes from heating up a meal and having a nice warm meal, especially on a day like today where we have the lows hitting down in the 30s and 40s, and it's starting to get a little bit cool now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use the heat and whatever moisture is left over from the corn to kind of rehydrate my oat flatbread here. There we have it. Our flatbread is done. Our refugee Thanksgiving is complete. I've got about a half cup of dried fruit here. I've got some dried cranberries, and I'm going to go ahead and tuck in. Now, I was on an intermittent fast today, so I haven't eaten until now, and I can just tell you that sitting around here, smelling the smoke from the fire, feeling the heat as the food cooks, the oats as they start to pick up the flavors and the moisture from the corn and the chicken, it all just gets taken in, and you really your body starts to wake up to those senses and wake up to that feeling that more energy is coming and food is coming, and it releases serotonin, releases other chemicals in your body to tell you, I'm ready to eat. And I am definitely ready to eat. I'm going to go ahead and tuck into this. Well, I finished my meal, and that is just one of the ways that you're going to keep normalcy using your staple food products. It might be things that you have in your survival stores. If you don't have it, please go out and get flour, rice, sugar, oats, canned corns, canned vegetables, canned fruit, things that will ensure that you have the ability to, one, remain mobile because you can take a certain amount of that with you if you are forced into an evacuation. Also, you'll be able to stay at home, shelter in place. Don't become a refugee. You'll have enough that you don't have to go out and get other stores. And you can still keep normalcy. You can still have a Thanksgiving meal with you, your children, your loved ones, or just friendly people nearby, or even yourself and your pets. I still have some cranberries left. I'm going to go ahead and reuse some coffee from a press that I made this morning and enjoy the sunset before it gets too late. If you have anything that you would cook as a refugee meal, if you have any food stores or staples that you go to each and every time, tell us in the comment box below. What do you use your staples for? What do you use your survival rations for? Most of all, thank each and every one of you for being here with us. I hope that you have a happy holiday, as tomorrow is a Western holiday, and a happy holiday season coming up in the rest of this year. Please stay safe, remain vigilant, remain prepared, and keep watch. This episode of Full Spectrum Survival is brought to us in part by MRENation.com. MRE Nation is running a 15% off Black Friday deal for all of our viewers here on YouTube. If you're looking for an MRE, something that you can go out and you don't have to process your own meal, you don't have to cook something over an open fire. You might be in an evacuation. You might be on the run. You might be not wanting to draw that attention to yourself. That smoke and the smells of cooking something certainly will. Go to MRENation.com, use the code FSS15. With that code, you're going to get access to 15% off your entire shopping cart, no matter what it is. And you can use it more than once, but that code goes away. I believe it's this Saturday at 1 a.m. or Friday at midnight. Make sure you go and use it as soon as possible. From all of us here at Full Spectrum Survival, to you and your entire family, please stay safe.